What?
Yo, man, I'm gonna get pumped up and bump you around a little bit. Ugh.
It's interesting to play some of the games from back before gaming as a medium hit the popularity it's now known for. Back then, games didn't have to have good mechanics, they just had to have some semblance of fun. That was when computers looked like this instead of this. I'm sure they were fun at the time, but games on average really don't hold up through time without remasters or mods to keep up with modern hardware. That's not really a problem for me though. I dusted off the old computer to play those classics the way they're meant to be played. Not really, I got it on Steam. Ys. Ancient Ys Vanished 1 and 2 Chronicles Plus is not only an incredibly Japanese name for a game, but it's also a remake of a PC game from 1989. Ancient Ys Vanished and Ancient Ys Vanished Final Chapter. These two games are so tied together that remaking one without the other would have been incredibly foolish. They were developed by Nihon Falcom, who are pretty much just known for Ys and Legends of Heroes now. But they started taking recent Ys games in a really nice direction lately in the last couple of years with much more active gameplay. As you would expect, an old-ass game like this has pixel graphics, but the remake's art is very pretty and makes visual sense. If you play it in 4x3, that is. Widescreen 16:9 looks terrible and you lose the great screen overlay in the process. Monsters act like they look. A hooded figure is obviously a magic attacker and the tiny goblins of course go down pretty fast. Their designs are pretty interesting. Look at this one. He looks like a Gundam thing.
This is no Zaku, boy! No Zaku!
Your main character is very apparent with his red hair and also being pretty much the only man in this demon-infested world wearing armor. Also, the camera is focused on you, but that's too easy to point out. Talking to certain characters brings up character portraits. These were added in the 2001 PC remake of the game. With the Chronicles Plus version on Steam and GOG, you can switch between the original 2001 complete art and the 2013 Chronicles Plus art. The 2001 art is a little bit nicer, less anime inspired and looks like art that would be in the awesome Ys OVA from the 90s. The pixel art of the main title screen is something special, honestly. Not just because it's a naked girl with tits on the front of her, but it's tastefully done. These kinds of games have very interesting title screens or logos where you understand the meaning behind them at the end of the game. Sort of like what Final Fantasies have done, especially 15's main logo. The music can be switched between the PC-88 version and the complete/Chronicles version as well. I would turn it to anything other than the PC-88 music. It's horribly loud and grating. Not that I particularly like any of the music besides the title theme and maybe Darm's Tower theme from the first game. Compared to the other Nihon Falcom games, it's just not really that great. I know that that's potentially a really bad take as everyone everywhere loves this music, but maybe I'm just cynical and I hate music and everything it stands for. The OVA's music is pretty great though. Okay, now let's get into the damn games. Your main character is Adol Kristen, a swordsman destined to repel the evils of the land. Truly, this is a very simple game. After you wake up and get moving around, you just, you go kill something. Shit, I don't have a sword, so I can't actually kill anything. So just get a sword, right? How do I do that? Where do I buy stuff actually? What the fuck do I do? Old school JRPGs love to throw you under the bus immediately. Here's a quest to go on, now figure out everything by yourself. Hell, Western RPGs did this too during the DOS days to a stupid amount. Now, first of all, full disclosure. I played the PSP port back in the day an absolute shit ton, so I can remember a lot, but to the casual person who's just running this game the first time with no walkthrough, good luck. What you'll actually want to do is talk to every person in town at least once. Then go talk to one of the town guards. Sloth. Go through all of his dialogue options, then leave. He'll give you a free short sword after that. Immediately, this game sets a precedent of being secretive to a stupid amount. This hidden sword is so notorious that it warrants its own Steam achievement. He'll tell you to go to the town of Mania. A fortune teller who actually gets this game started lives there. There's enemies to fight between here and there, so pack up your bags and let's get ready to talk about the combat. And it sucks. Not really, but it's very primitive. Combat involves bumping into enemies, but specifically not their center mass, or they will bump you back. At your current level, you could die from 2 or 3 attacks. It's a good idea to stop at the screen just north of Mania to grind on the blue monsters for a few levels. This game has more bumping and grinding in it than some of the porn games on Steam. After fighting, if you find yourself low on health, just stand still in the overworld to regenerate that health. It's slow, but it's way better than having to go all the way back to town for some hot nurse R&R. The max level is only 10 in Ys 1, and you will hit that around the halfway point. So learning the combat is very important. It's more about skill than beating up dragons for 30 minutes so that you can be overpowered for the next boss. Ys 2 has a cap of 55, and that one is all about overleveling for the next boss. That's an insane change in approach in the span of what? A year? But before you call the combat terrible and unintuitive, just know that Ys 2 has a few more combat mechanics that dramatically increase its enjoyability. So if you can get through Ys 1, then you should just do it. Ys 2 introduced diagonal bumps and magic. Diagonal is the true way to kill enemies. No chance of them fighting back, and if you put them against a wall, you can just whittle their health down to nothing. Magic is as simple as fireballs for the most part. There's additional magic that stops time or gives you a shield and stuff, but since a lot of Ys 2 bosses are immune to physical attacks, you'll be keeping your fireball magic on a lot. There's even 2 different accessories in 2 that add another ability to your fire magic, tracking and additional projectiles. Those are fun upgrades, just wish there were more for all the other magics as well. Altar magic lets you take the form of a Rue, and most enemies will converse with you thinking you're also a demon. You can get some interesting dialogue from creatures and a 4th wall break too. I end up liking these guys a lot, but they have so much XP that I guess I just have to kill my creature friends now. Weapons and armor dramatically increase your prowess in dispatching monsters. One sword upgrade and a level can have you one-shotting the enemies you were just grinding for an hour. Rings can change up combat a little by giving you more attack or defense, maybe increased health regeneration or slowing down enemies. And of course those rings don't work in boss fights, for either game. It's insanely rude first of all, but second of all, once you hit max level, that means you really don't have any need for them, besides the increased defense so that you don't have to stop to heal quite as much. All in all, combat is extremely simplified. It seems a little dull right now, but boss fights will give you that combat rush that you need. Full transparency here, some are very dull, yes. Genokries is a bland boss where his big mechanic is waiting, whoa. Nigtilger, wait, can I say that? Thing is just running in a circle and attacking his sides when you can. The real stars are Consklard, Dark Fact, and Darm. They projectile spam like motherfuckers. I get Toho stress attacks just thinking about them. Their attacks are tied to your frame rate also, so a 144Hz monitor, that's gonna be fun. Normal mode turns into a nightmare real fast, so put on your gunners. The environments you find these monsters in are pretty different. There aren't a whole lot of locations to visit in either game, so each dungeon has a great new design. You go to shrines, icy mountains, lava-filled caverns, also caves, twice. The ultimate dungeons in each game are multi-leveled labyrinths. Darm Tower and the Shrine of Solomon. These take about 3 times as long as any other area you visit and are home to some pretty serious monsters. I hated Darm Tower going through it the first time because of all the various traps and backtracking to get essential items, but looking back on it now, it was pretty fun. The Shrine of Solomon has some pretty interesting mechanics and gave a look into the way demons are organized. Super neat to use altar magic to talk to a demon boss and all he does is yell at you and tell you to get back to work. Life really does imitate art. I really like the various villages you come across on your travels too. People live wildly different lives between each town and have their own fears of the outside world. There's a group of priests that follow the goddesses of Ys, but that's tied into the story, so I don't want to talk about that too much. You get to talk to both groups, and though they drive the story, they're pretty uninteresting. Cute though. I hope Aldo got their number. Adol's story in this game starts in the port city of Barbados, but the manual for the original release goes much more into the backstory of him being a child of poor farmers who started exploring. The world of Ys has counterparts to our own real world. The first game takes place on the nation of Esteria, which is a small island off the coast of Gallia, which is basically just France. I don't want to make a French joke, but it sure is weird that the Esterians were okay with an invading army occupying them and waiting for an outsider to free them. Again, not saying anything. Adol washes up on the beach after passing through a terrible storm that keeps Esteria separated from the mainland. It's up to you to defeat an evil wizard with your might and some friends. And you can also check the measurements of your friends. This is creepy as shit, but what's even worse is that you can do this to like a 9-year-old boy in the second game. Heh, didn't know Kevin Spacey made a game, huh?
I was just blinded by the balls on that kid.
The first game is pretty self-contained, so when you're just plunked into number 2, it was kind of jarring. Adol is pretty good at acclimating to new situations though, so you make friends and go and kill an evil wizard again. I'm explaining the story simply, but the lore can get pretty deep, but it's enough for a child to understand. No esoteric time loop like Final Fantasy 1, or confusing character motivations like Drakengard 3. The story just flows. Ys 1 and 2 were great little games. I didn't think that coming back to the originals would be as much of a treat as it was. The PSP port I played came out in America 10 years ago, and to think that I'd come back to this game for a review is wild. I could understand if someone wouldn't want to play this game because of the weird combat or how it never tells you what to do or where to go. To get through this game is truly a test of patience at certain points. Some RPG magazines call this game a masterpiece. I wouldn't go so far because of the lack of anything intuitive really going for it, but I would call it damn good. It's just a plain fun game. I prefer this type of simple experience to a shallow new game. Man, Cyberpunk really bummed me out. I think I'll do a similar game for the next video. See you all in 3 weeks.